Good evening, welcome to LFC Transfer Room. You're with Dan, Race and Stu. Wonderful game today. First game at Anfield for Arne Slot. Big win. Some really nice goals from not just the players who we well and truly know, but also some of the youth players, and I was really impressed with that one. Get your likes in, get your chat in. I want to hear all your opinions. I want to hear what you thought about the game, what you thought was good, what you thought was bad, who impressed you, who didn't impress you. I want to know about it in the chat. I want to discuss it with you. Get involved. This conversation's a lot more interesting if you are involved in it, you, the viewer. Right, boys, we'll go straight into the big one. Zubimendi. Reports coming out that Zubimendi's getting closer, apparently. It feels like it's been that way for a little while. Race, how are you and Zubimendi? It's a saga that's gone on for a little bit now. Mm-hmm. How do you see this situation? Are you still comfortable, or are you a little bit bit concerned that this is dragging on a little bit longer?
Well, as you mentioned, kind of, before we came on here, this report kind of getting leaked out there maybe happened a little sooner than maybe we would have liked. Maybe it's from Sociedad's side of things, letting this information get out there. And look, in this day and age, it's hard to keep things, tight-lipped and, just under wraps. Like it's social media. It's everyone's, everyone's got to, it's just hard. It's going to be impossible to really keep something under wraps until we get the official confirmation that this is happening. But, for Zubimendi, he's been at Sociedad, his entire career. It's his, that's where he's, he's homegrown and all that. And so it makes sense that, there is sort of a second guessing, or at least a hesitation, to fully on commit to Liverpool, even though it seemingly looks like he's, leaning towards that decision. There just has to be a little more discussions to be involved, personally and within the team and all that. And of course, Sociedad are doing everything they can to keep him around, and same with, a couple other players that they're at risk of losing. And so, this is just how it goes. It seems like, with a lot of transfers, it's just a back and forth thing. And, we just kind of get these little updates here and there. Oh, he's leading towards it. Oh, they're, presentation, trying to convince him and all that. And so, we're hearing seemingly every single step of the way, when ideally we can skip about, 10 to 15 of these updates that happen and just get straight down to business. So it seemed like this weekend was hopefully this is kind of like the final, give your final pitch, Sociedad. What are you going to do? What kind of contract can you offer him? But as we've seen kind of today is maybe, he is leaning towards Liverpool. I hate to say, what's going to happen one way or another, but it seems like there's a lot of momentum in our direction. And so the hope is that a deal can, once it's kind of confirmed, that we can kind of get him in and get all that sorted, because season starts, in 6 days. Like, we need to get him in and get him integrated in our team, especially, in the position that's going to be, pretty vital for us. And it's a position that will take some time getting used to. So, it's gonna take some time, even when he gets here, before he's really kind of a featured part of our team at that. So, the sooner you can get all this negotiations done, the better. Of course, there's release clause there, but you're going to do your due diligence and try to try to get a little bit beneath that. But I think in the back of their minds, they at least have that release clause if they're willing to pay it, to just to fork over the money. And of course, we've been doing a little business on outgoing transfers as well. So it's just kind of a waiting game now for me. It's just waking up every day and seeing if there's an update, if there's a little more push going a certain way. I'm increasingly optimistic that this will happen. Seems like we've zeroed in on the player. So, unless there's some, drastic, change of heart on the other end, hopefully this will get done, by this week, and we can, begin to talk a little bit more about how he fits into a team, as if we already haven't been talking about that, but just a little bit more, excitement and bring in, such which will be a, critical point, or critical piece of our team.
Oh, 100%. And you made some really good points there. And as much as I think the FIFA generation has really made transfers oversimplistic for some people's minds as to how quickly they think these situations can be done. And then they think it's just a case of, as long as you offer the player enough money and you offer the club enough money, then the answer will be yes. And it isn't always the case. There's a lot that needs to be taken into account here. And there's a very personal level sort of situation going on with this transfer. Real Sociedad is a Basque club The players are from that region. The players are very proud of where they're from. The Basque region is very proud of where it is in Spain. And there has to be some face has to be saved here, doesn't it? That Zubimendi can't be just seen to just go, right, that's it. Cheers, lads. I'm off. I'm out of here. He can't do that because this is his people. This is where he is. This is his boyhood club. And it's not to say he is the Steven Gerrard of their team, but perhaps he probably is right now. He probably is. He's the Trent Alexander-Arnold of that team as it stands. He is their local boy. He's their one who's done good. He's the one who's gone on to, win the Euros. He's whilst being in that team, who's deputised for Rodri, and they're incredibly proud of him, and so they should be. So the feelings that I think this has probably come out a little bit earlier than maybe Liverpool wanted it to be. I imagine they probably maybe wanted this news to maybe come out over this weekend as opposed to earlier this week. Say this news had come out yesterday, this story is no longer long-standing information. We have a weekend, the football, the conjecture, the talk, and then Monday or Tuesday a deal gets done and everyone thinks, well, that was wrapped up really quickly. Where in fact, actually, transfers aren't wrapped up very quickly, especially ones which can be as complicated as this one. He is an incredibly good player for what he does. Excitement isn't the right word about him, but it's that kind of intelligence of a footballer that you want. He's someone who can do the right things a lot of the time. He is a player who will probably not drop below a 7 out of 10 and will hit 8s and 9s, going forward through the season for us. I'm really excited. I'm still very confident the deal gets done. I just think there needs to be a bit more work that needs to be done between now and then. Both for Real Sociedad, they probably have their opportunities to say, here's what we can offer you to stay. We're already losing a number of really high quality players and we don't want to end up in the wilderness. And Zubimendi at the same side has to balance his dream of maybe wanting to move on to a club where he can go on and win trophies, perhaps win the Champions League, perhaps win a league, because at Sociedad that's not going to happen, and that's respectful to Sociedad, but it isn't going to happen if he stays where he is. But he also has to manage that way of him not being like, right, I've got a taste for winning now and I'm off out of here. So yeah, I want people's thoughts too in the chat. I think this is I want your thoughts on what we've said so far. And we'll go to Stu. Zubimendi, it's something which we all want to be done. I think we all probably want the answer more than anything, because it's sort of like, if not him, then let's move on to the next one. Yeah. Are you still feeling confident? Are you still feeling comfortable in this situation? Do you think that now we've had the preseason has finished? Yeah. Now it's time to get down to the real business, like Race says. Football kicks off in 6 days.
Yeah, I do think he's going to agree to come. I agree with what you say as well. I think it's somehow got leaked out maybe by one of the clubs or one of the agents. The whole story just came out just a little bit too soon. That maybe have put a little bit of pressure on Zubimendi, but I'm going to echo what you were saying as well about the fact that what Zubimendi stands for at Sociedad is basically our version of Cara, Gerrard. It's local. I understand that. It's difficult, but I think from a personal perspective of seeing how he's looking at it, is how really ambitious is he? How much does he want to win in his career? Because, like you said, and it is no disrespect to Sociedad at the moment, you are not going to compete with the likes of Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, or Real Madrid for the league title. You may get lucky in one of the years for a Copa del Rey, possibly. But again, and you may get into a Europa League with Sociedad at some point, but you're not going to be punching for the big time unless you go into a bigger club, which Liverpool, without tooting our own horns too much, we are a bigger club. And we are in that position to say, okay, we can compete for titles every season at the moment. So which is it going to be? I don't think he's going to say no, but at the same time, I don't think the club should have the piss taken out of him. And I think a deadline should be initiated, because if you really do want to come to a bigger club, then you had to make a quick decision about it as well. That's the way I look at it, because you can't hang about. Not in this transfer market anyway. And as you say, if he's not going to give a clear indication that he's going to come, then we move on.
Yeah, I mean, the reports have been coming out through David Ornstein's and then kind of them being reciprocated by other ones.
Yeah.
The Sociedad journalists have come out there. They've had their opportunity to say their piece, like rightfully that they should. It has been a little bit of conjecture, a little bit of back and forth, and this is to be expected. Again, there has to be some face has to be saved. Real Sociedad has to be seen to do everything it can to keep this player. Yeah. Of course, they can. They don't have the financial ability to offer more than what we can. That's a fact. They just can't.
Yeah,
we're capable of offering more in wages. He is a player who is ready-made. This isn't a young talent where the club isn't able to sit there and justify paying him a upward rate, or at least put him in there with some of our kind of mid to high earners. I'm not saying we're going to put him on 200,000 a week. I'm not saying we're going to put him on those numbers. But if we came in, he was on 165. I don't think anyone in the dressing room would go, what are we paying this lad for? Like, he is a Euros winner. He is obviously an incredibly top talent and is able to literally fit into this system that we've just seen today. And I think that we're just, it's like he's seamless. I think he would just come straight in. The way that I've seen him play, it suits him down to the ground. It suits us down to the ground.
By the way, I do actually, there's been a lot of comparisons made, but I do think he is a very Alonso type player, which we love having in our team. His characteristics and the way he plays are so similar to him that that's another reason why I think he'd fit the club. That's his style of play. Fans will absolutely love it. They'll lap it up. And I do think that if he does turn us down, he'd be missing out on a massive opportunity, huge opportunity.
100%. Just for everyone who's maybe missed a start, I know I got off on time today, so I'm on time, and a few of you I caught out with. So Zubimendi, Matt Moreno, Spanish journalist, has come out there and he said that he believes that the idea of it not being a financial situation, he does like the idea of coming to Liverpool. Again, I don't know where this is coming from. Is this directly from? Is it from his age? And is this just? Yep. Am I just making this up off the top of my head, or is this just the fact that this is all the big game that has to be played because of who we're dealing with? Sociedad, for those who don't know, it's a little bit like a Liverpool in a way that it's very, very fiercely proud of where it is and who they are and the people from where they are. So for them, it has to be seen that they have to do everything they can, and the player also has to be seen to not be someone who just gets off and leaves. It's a little bit more finicky than a lot of transfers. I'm very confident that the fact that the club's journalists haven't been briefed to shut this down, haven't been briefed to put this out or put that out, that leads me to believe that they feel comfortable in where the situation is right now. Had, James Pearce's and had some of those names started to come out there and shut this down, that's when we need to know. But normally if a transfer dies quite quickly, and this hasn't died quickly. It just seems to be one that is ongoing. I feel comfortable enough. I know a lot of people are saying that, it's over, it's Caicedo. And by the way, happy Caicedo anniversary. That was today, by the way. For those of you just who needed a bit of a misery just to put in there, just make you feel a little bit better. But we've outlasted Caicedo as it stands right now. Let me have a little route through the comments just to go on there. Race, anything you want to add on Zubimendi's situation as it stands while I have a route through the comments?
I mean, it's like I said, it's just kind of a waiting game for now. We were all kind of hoping, we're waiting for some sort of chance for movement, and then boom, we kind of get Zubimendi right there, and that's kind of how under this front office here is how it's worked. It's been a kind of a quick fire. This is working in silence basically, and then this comes out. And so again, like I said, it's hard to keep anything under wraps, especially if one side's really kind of pushing to keep the player, like Sociedad, and so it's from all the reports I've seen, it's all hinting towards him, leaning towards Liverpool. I haven't seen any, definitive he's now heavily considering, moving back, or, the most, I think momentum the other way was when the fact that Sociedad were going to have like some sort of, like a PowerPoint presentation or something for him to try and convince them back, that sort of little story in the beginning. But it seems like, the price isn't too hefty. We're willing to at least negotiate at or around that release clause. And everything just seems to be, in our favor. Now it really is, like you said, it's such a tough thing, for a player to leave, the club they've been at for their entire career, go to a whole new country and a whole new league. And, it's natural to have a little bit of, cold feet or, just a little bit of hesitation towards that. But I think, warming up to the idea and again, recognizing that he's coming to Liverpool, a big club, we're going to be competing at the top end, unlike Sociedad, where, yeah, they made the Champions League, but they're not really, contending, at the highest level. And, he's getting to an age too, he's in that prime age. He's, ready to take that next step. If you've been at the club forever and you're willing to, make that next step, I think this is a very sensible move for a player. Again, it just comes down to, personally, just saying your goodbyes or just kind of come to grips with the reality that, your life is about to change, drastically. But in a footballing sense, hopefully it'll improve.
100%. And I think you've a really good point you just made. Has anyone actually thought perhaps there just needs to be a bit of a longer goodbye? Perhaps there needs to be a situation like you just said there, that he needs to have that opportunity to say goodbye to the fans. He needs to have an opportunity to say goodbye to the people he needs to say goodbye to. And that this isn't just a case of, right, pack your bags and up and you go. At 25, I don't know about a lot of you people, but I don't recall being as comfortable with just saying, I'm going to up my entire life and get myself off and go and live in a different country, when, of course, he's been, you
could discount me out of that. I'm ex-military, so I was well away by the time I was 25.
You're well away, but you had no choice. You had someone telling you to go and do that. You have to go, right? Yeah. You're off to go and sit in prepping for 3 weeks in the rain.
I get what you're saying, though. It's fair. Yeah. Actually, looking at it from a human point and looking at, say, day-to-day, normal life jobs, not football.
Yeah.
Get off the job abroad. Of course, you're going to be apprehensive and think, okay, I need to adapt to this life. What do I need over there? All that sort of stuff. I get that. I think that's a fair point. Actually, we sometimes do forget about the.
It is forgotten. Things. It is, Stu. It is forgotten, and I know it's difficult because for some people they might see they're the favorite people they see on the TV, or they're the people who only appear in TV land, or only appear on a Wednesday night and a Saturday night and a Sunday afternoon. But they're actually people. They're actually people who have lives beyond football. By the way, you only train from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock every day, and then the rest of the day is yours. So for him, it's a massive change. So it is, and again, we just got to respect that, and I do feel comfortable. And for some people, it's dead easy, right? I'm up and I'm off and I'm gone. But perhaps in this situation, it's not. And Helly made a really, really good point there. The fact that Zubimendi earlier has said, no to Barcelona, I'm trying to get it up. Sorry, no to Barcelona on multiple occasions, Bayern Munich and Arsenal. Should have been a slight indicator this wasn't a quick and open shut case. Absolutely. And the fact that some of our fans think that all of a sudden that we can change that situation. This isn't just us. He's been a bit apprehensive with. He's turned down 3 massive clubs there. And, we've come in there. And by the way, he hasn't said no. This isn't something which he's like, we've been rejected. There's something going on here. And I think there just needs to be a level of patience. I feel very comfortable and confident that the club wouldn't have spent the last 2 weeks dealing with him had they not got serious indications that this is the way to go. I have more of a feeling that perhaps they're trying to negotiate the way of doing the deal. I'll be honest, that's not off anything other than my own personal sort of view. The club will not want to pay a 51 million euro buyout clause. Just as a little information situation for people who don't know, in Spain, every player has to have a buyout clause, every single one. Barcelona, why you hear Yamal has a 1 billion euro buyout clause. It's for them, it's like a point of pride that these players can't be purchased, they can't be bought, but it's a legal situation. The legal situation has to be put in there. 51 million euros to Real Sociedad when they probably put that in a few years ago, for them would have been brilliant. What a massive amount of money this would fund the club for a full season or whatever it might be. But they've now turned out that Martin Zubimendi's turned out to be one of the top talents in one of the most valuable positions in football right now as a 6, because if they're not playing at Man City or Arsenal, it's slim pickings when it comes to 6s right there, especially those in the right age bracket and those who aren't going to cost an absolute arm and a leg in football terms. So for me, I feel comfortable. I think the club are looking to try and find a way of paying Sociedad rather than paying the buyout clause. That's just off the financial side, because you can split that payment over 3 years for PSR as opposed to a buyout clause that has to go straight on your paperwork this year. And that might limit us buying other players. And nobody wants to hear that if we spend 51 million in this season, that doesn't mean that we've only spent 51 million. Each club has to spend a certain amount each season to keep within PSR. If we want to go and buy Anthony Gordon, yes, I've said it. Here I am again. We want to go and buy Anthony Gordon. His deal will more than likely be split over 3. But of course, if you've only got 85 million that you can spend in this season to meet PSR, that we all know has teeth and we all know can take points off you and we all know can hurt you right now, then we've got to stay within that. And the club has to try and find a way of doing everything it can to do all of the business it wants to do. But there's my monologue anyway about that situation. Before we move on to a little bit more of a positive conversation, which is about the game, we'll go for the quick chat there. Could we get a here we go tonight? I can only pray. Yes, I think Fabrizio can also pray because of the big fat paycheck he get off it as well. But between now and then, he will definitely put some more tweets out about the situation, telling you what you already know. Jay, what do you think about VVD? That's inside there. We'll put that in there in a minute. There's some good comments. I'll go on to Race because you brought them up before we charted his comments about it. That'll be a good chat to go on. But that's such a risk to take for us waiting as long. He might have changed his only mind and stay, which is not good for us. He could have done. He may well have done. It has to be said that he's not like he hasn't done that before. But that's not on the club. That's not the club's fault. If this player is said to him, I want to move and I'll do this, and all of a sudden he changes his mind, what can you do? I'm going to be honest, there's not much anyone can do about that situation. Race, we'll bring up this comment actually. What do you think about what VVD has said? He's in his last year of his contract. They brought up about his contract. He said nothing has changed. But he also made comments about the club needing to make transfers, obviously, to compete this season. Do you think that this is a little bit of the captain just putting a little bit of pressure on?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, remember he's the captain here, so he's going to be the face of, any questions that, surrounding incoming players or transfers. Of course, there's, only so much you can say, in specifics, but, it's just kind of, professional way of saying, hey, like hopefully we'll get some signs here. Like we need some, because he's been a part of a squad, multiple years now where, we're competing on multiple fronts and, we've had injury crisis and all these certain things. And, to go into a new season without any new players, I think would be highly irresponsible. And again, I think, the club knows that. And it's just getting to a point where, again, nothing is certain in the transfer window. So you can, be patient, wait all you want. But, once that deadline day hits and you don't have a player coming in, then it's, it's panic time. So this is just, kind of given, his backing of the front office there and Michael Edwards and Hughes and just, just kind of being, just kind of stating the obvious, if you will. And in terms of his own personal contract situation, when you're, been in a team for so long and then a new manager comes in, it's not necessarily certain that, your future there is unquestionably, you're going to continue your time there. Like that's, kind of a reality that, we might have to come to grips with. But I think, nothing to worry about in the moment. But, specifically with the Zubimendi stuff going on, of course, the players certainly, hear about this and know that there is, active movement. Again, and it was tough too, because we had a new manager come in and then you had the Euros and Copa America on top of that as well. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our players were in the later stages of those tournaments. So they're just kind of getting back into the team. So you look at why, our transfer business, taking some time. Well, it's just because we haven't had our team together yet. And Slot and his coaching staff just haven't been able to decide, like, hey, which players are going to work for us and whatnot. And we saw right after our U.S. tour, Fabio Carvalho going out the door and Bobby Clark and some other youngsters as well. And so now you're starting to see that movement. And yes, it's unfortunate that it's taken some time, but that's just the reality of where we're at. This isn't, like last year or years past, where, we got everyone back in the preseason. Like we're just kind of waiting like, hey, what's the excuse? Like we have everyone here. We know what we need. Like let's do some business. Like I can understand why it's taken some time. And, it's certainly, something to keep in mind. But Virgil, I think is just being the professional that he is, is just kind of back in the front, the front office there to make some moves, and also just being a slightly encouraging, like, hey guys, we need to do something, because like especially in our center back room, like we got me, I got Kanate here, Kwanzaa, Gomez, but like we lost Matip this summer. Nat Phillips, does he have a future? Probably not. So certainly in that center back room, I think there needs to be a signing there at some point. But it's not the most unsurprising comment to come out of him, but just reaffirming work kind of what we're all saying. I hope that other people realize too, that our transfer business has taken some time to formulate, but at least now that this Zubimendi stuff in the past week has given me a little more confidence to, like, okay, we are doing stuff now. Like, it was kind of a waiting game, but this is now given that confirmation that yes, we are working behind the scenes and getting stuff done. So I think once we, it's hard to work on multiple deals at a time, especially incoming transfers. Outgoing, you can, it seems like we can do those, like that. But the incoming ones, getting the big pieces, I think those are, kind of step by step, player by player situation. So hopefully the Zubimendi stuff will be done, and then we can get onto our next player. And if there's a third, move to be made, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's just kind of echoing what I think we all think at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. Stu, yourself, VVD after the defeat to England, the Euros, and made comments stating that he would assess his international and his league career and his contract situation. This is sort of self-imposed, isn't it, really, in my opinion? Virgil van Dijk is the one who holds all the cards. I have every faith that Liverpool will be more than happy to offer him a contract, and he wants to see how things are going, and that's absolutely fair. He'll want to see who the new boss is, what's the vision for the club, what's the direction it's going to make. Many players at Liverpool have done this before. Fernando Torres made this decision, by the way, and he was hated for it. He was promised that we were going to bring in all of these players, and we sold Mascherano and we sold Alonso, and that's the direction that the club was going at the time under the old ownership. So he's got every right to sit there and go, I need to see which way we're going. Are we going on an upward trajectory? Are we going backwards? What's going on? So for you, Virgil van Dijk, he's putting the right pressure on. He's said it in a really professional way, in my opinion. Do you feel that they have any sort of inclination? Do you think they're actually brought into these conversations at all? Or do you think it really is a case of right now, Edwards, Hughes, slot, club?
I would say, I'm going to go on a limb here. I don't think he's going to sign a contract. It's going to be for two reasons. I think the first reason being, obviously, contract runs out next summer, so the contract will finish 30th of June. Literally 8 days later, he's 34. 34 is an age for a centre back, which generally your legs by that point are on the decline. And most centre-backs in their professional career will look for one final swan song. I don't think Liverpool will be looking at that as potential for him. He's coming into his 8th season with us now, and I do think this will probably be his last one. I'll be sad to see him go if that is the case, but personally, that's how I see it playing out. And secondly, as you alluded to as well, at the end of the Euros, he even stated as such, like not so many words, that he just wanted to see what was going on.
Yeah.
And again, he's probably looking at it going, okay, I've won everything that I possibly can. I mean, last year, maybe I could get a Gucci little payday for a couple of years in Saudi Arabia or something like that. They'll take him easily over there. I mean, a superstar name like him, easy. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's how it ended up. He ends up going on a free next season. And again, from a business point, I wouldn't be too annoyed at that because you're not going to get a lot of money for a 34-year-old centre-back.
No.
Regardless of the name. You got to look at like sort of the physicality more than anything else now. So him going on a free, I could see that happening. I think that's probably going to be the scenario that's going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, it is, for me, Virgil van Dijk is a player who has served his club obviously impeccably throughout his time. He's had a really serious injury. He's come back. He's been incredible. He's now captains the club. Ever the professional, there's nothing bad that can be said about the situation where he's in. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. The age is a situation. I think that it's a case that has to be thought about, and ultimately all good things do come to an end.
That's just the reality of football.
Yeah, it's the reality of life, isn't it? That's the truth. Is eventually we all hit a point where we go over the peak, and there is certain players in this team who are probably going over that peak a little bit earlier than where Van Dijk is at 33. And Andy Robertson is potentially one of those players, and as much as people may not want to hear that, he probably is. I think he's past his peak. I think we've seen the very best of Andy Robertson, and thankfully Costa Tsimikas has played incredible. We'll go on to the Sevilla chat just in a minute because I think he's one who was worth a mention. But if you want my 2 pence when it comes to how I think that this season's business will be done, I feel that I think Zubimendi will be done. I think Liverpool will sign Anthony Gordon. I'm going to say it. It's either now or January. I think we're either signing him now or in January, in one of those two situations, because he holds all the cards with Newcastle in managing his value. If he doesn't sign a new contract between now and January, his value will plummet. Not to a point of like, oh my God, we're getting for a bargain, but he will drop with 15 to 20 million in what they wanted, because ultimately he goes into his final year in the summer. Then it's panic stations. Then it means that his value is a lot lower. I think that one of those two things will be done. I don't think Liverpool will address the defensive situation. I think they'll do it next season. I think they'll see how things are going. I think they'll look at the players they've already got now. We'll play a style of football which shouldn't be asking them to overexert themselves. And I think we've seen that now. I think we've watched enough football games that Liverpool have played that this isn't going to be full metal, heavy metal, full throttle football all the time. It's going to be less intensive on our players. Feyenoord's injuries were very low. AZ Alkmaar's injuries were very low. Let's hope that continues under the system under Arne Slot, that he is the reason that the injuries become very low. If it ends up being a contact injury, you can't help it. That happens. If a big, massive 6'4" fella lands on Diogo Jota at Brentford, you can't help that, can you? It just happens.
He's going to snap the kick out.
But what we can ask is perhaps Diogo Jota's not doing those things where he is getting in battles with fellas that size, because that's how these things can happen. So I feel comfortable that that's what we're going to do. I don't think Liverpool are going to make any defensive signings. I could be wrong, and hopefully I am wrong, because it means that they'll have a little bit more ahead of the game as to where they are. I feel that Liverpool has an attacker. I feel an attacker will leave between now and next summer. That could be any one of Gakpo, any one of Diaz. It will be Salah. I don't think Salah is going to continue. We need to bring in a number of players. It's a transition. Not only is a manager transition, but it's also a team transition. There's a number of players who have been unbelievable for us. But we know that time is coming to an end, and we're having to see the new iteration of Liverpool coming forward. But let's talk about the new forward iteration, which was Liverpool 4, Sevilla 1. Fantastic, wasn't it? It couldn't have gone any better race. Great goals. Trainioni scoring his first goal at the Kop end. Diogo Jota scoring an absolute worldie. Breakaways, a Liverpool goal, I think, is becoming a bit of something we can see now on the pitch. What did you make of the final? I'm going to say it's the final preseason. I won't give that last Parma's game. That was a little bit more of the B team having a run out more than anything, to be honest. But what did you make of the Sevilla game and the preseason sort of kind of coming to an end?
Yeah, another good performance by us. And good to see, some of our regulars back in there, like Van Dijk and McAllister and Diaz and Jota coming back. Diaz looking lively on that side, getting a couple goals and a nice finish there, on his first one. And we've been talking a lot about, Gakpo possibly coming in on that left side and possibly being some competition for Diaz. And I love that, competition brings out the best in players, and hopefully Diaz is looking at that and say, hey, I got to up my game a little bit. And, this Gakpo guy is going to be, right on my shoulder. So I think Diaz, hopefully we'll go up can improve a little bit. His goal output, goal contributions, can definitely improve. It's kind of the one thing we're hoping to see more out of. And so I think you look at this, this first team as a whole that went against Sevilla, it's pretty close to, what we might play, in our first Premier League game here coming up. I think it was interesting, to see Gravenberch, get started in this team as well. I really like, his potential and what he can become. Kind of an up and down season last year, but even then, he came in, later in the window and, was just kind of, we weren't going to rely upon him a lot last year. But I thought he has some really good performances and can show that, he has a lot of talent to him. And I like just how physical he is and very technical for a player of his size. And so I think for him, just trying to, coming in, making an impression with Slot in the preseason, I think, can hopefully have a bigger role this year. So I think, it was just really good to see them have a really good performance in front of, the Anfield crowd as well. I think, part of that second game too, it was, a lot of, the second team are not players, slated to start. also you have, it was behind closed doors. There weren't fans there. So just kind of the intensity of the game as a whole just kind of dropped down. And it was really kind of a training ground game, just to happen that we got to watch it. And so, just kind of a, and whatever, just a nice kick around and whatnot. But I think Slots, starting to identify some players that, he'll rely upon in this early part of the season. And similarly, like Kwanzaa, I think he'll be starting for us, come Saturday. I think he's nailed on. I think Konate is just a little bit behind him just because he came back later in preseason, and Kwanzaa's been there the whole time. And Van Dijk, he's the captain. He's just Mr. Reliable, so he's going to be in there as well. And then you look at the left back as well. Robertson, being a little hampered in the preseason. Tsimikas getting a run in. I know Robertson. I don't know how much he played. Let me check in that second game. So he played 60 minutes. So hopefully he's got a little gas in him. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Tsimikas start that first game for us. But yeah, just a good seeing us, kick on and score 4 goals there. Really good finishes as well. Of course, the Naoni as well getting a goal in there as well. It's just starting to formulate, with, like I said, with this first team here, just really starting to see, who we're going to rely on. And yeah, I mean, I honestly didn't really watch much. I didn't watch any of the game. It was so early here. I wasn't up for that, but just, reading about it and watching some of the highlights and stuff, just, it's kind of a common theme here. Really good performances in the preseason with Slot, and like you said, we're starting to see more of those Liverpool team goals, but the breakaways, just kind of getting on the end of things. And so hopefully that this is kind of a preview of what's to come, and we can really have a good run in here.
100%. I was very impressed with the fact this was Slot with, say, 85% of his first team squad available to him. And the fact that we scored 4 goals wasn't flattering. To be honest with you, I felt that we were good for all 4 of those. I thought we were really, really good. Not only did we control the game, like he said, he wanted to smother teams, he wanted to, to beat teams with passes, and all of these things have come true. What he said has come true. But not only that, we're also going out and scoring goals. This isn't a team who scores 1 or 2 goals and then looks to, kill a match. It's out there to take the opportunities that comes available to them, and that's exciting. And it's a style of play which I've really grown to like. To be honest, it's felt a lot more controlled. And there's a stat which stood out for me last season. Liverpool conceded 18 goals in the first 20 minutes. They scored 18 goals in the first 20 minutes and conceded 17. That's the problem. That was the issue that we had. Manchester City scored 25 and conceded 8. Arsenal was very similar. They conceded 8 as well. If Liverpool could concede only 8 goals in the first 20 minutes next season, that's going to mean a massive, massive push towards us putting points on the table. Points that cost us last season when we were chasing matches. Crystal Palace was when we lost that game, for God's sakes. Where we seem a lot more controlled. We seem a lot more solid. We seem that we haven't lost any of the attacking threat, but we seem to have fixed the defensive situation. We will, as rightfully said in the chat, we will give chances away. And especially in these first early games, when these players are getting used to this new system, we'll see what happened with Jarell Kwanzaa. There might be a slip, there might be a misplaced pass, there might be a situation where we give away gilt-edged chances. But we have to trust the fact that these players are at really high quality and will iron that out of their game. They will get better, they will become improved. And so far, it hasn't cost us. So far, the way that we have been playing hasn't cost us, and I really like that. And more can be taken away from today. More learning can be taken from all of the players. Luis Diaz, fantastic. I have been a big critic of him. I didn't feel that his output was high enough for a Liverpool attacker. Worked incredibly hard, absolutely. But what also needs to come with hard work is goals and assists. Today, he did that. 40 was really, really good, but he has to carry it on. We saw it last season against Chelsea. He scored the opening goal for Liverpool. It didn't continue. If he can make it continue, I'm all for it. But until now and between then, I'm very happy with the way these players have played. Stu, your thoughts and opinions on the Sevilla game? It's been a very enjoyable preseason for me. How about yourself? How did this game did it answer any questions for you?
Didn't answer any, not questions as such, but it was nice to watch a game not in the middle of the night, for a starter, which is always difficult. But I think overall, Slot's game plan, his philosophy has come over really, really quick from what I've seen. What he wants the players to do and how he wants the team to go about it. I think a little shout out has to go to Gravenberch for his performance today. I think he was actually pretty decent today. Simicas as well. I think he played really well. And Diaz, it was nice to see his new hairdo, as the comment says. Yeah, that was a pretty interesting perm and colouring going on. But if it brings good new form and goals and assists, then who are we to mention his hair colour at the end of the day? Because he's got the talent there. He proved that when he first came into the club.
Yeah,
he had a dip last season, which was completely understandable. So hopefully it was just a blip, and we are going to see and get the best out of him again. Which, to be fair, he's going to have to if he's got Gakpo breathing down his neck on that side as well, because Gakpo has been in some really good form. So I'm interested to see how that battle is going to go on throughout the season, because both those players aren't players that really get injured too much either. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. And if both of them are in top form, then it's going to bring better fortune to the team itself and bring in results and securing results that we dropped last season. Silly points where we shouldn't have dropped points, but we did. And say hopefully that will propel us up the league and hopefully get us top. That'd be nice.
This is it. I mean, I've been vocal from the very start, in my opinion, is that this team is good enough to challenge. Do I sit there and say we should win the league this season? No, that's too much to ask of anyone, but we should absolutely be challenging. And I won't accept anyone sitting there and saying that, oh, well, it's your first season, it's this or it's that. They're just excuses. This team that we have is very, very, very good. Of course they are. We are also up against two very, very good teams, but that doesn't mean that we can't go toe-to-toe for them. That doesn't mean that we can't come within a handful of points and being in there in the conversation when April and May comes around next season. I don't agree that, top four. No, because that's what we were when Jurgen Klopp took over. That's what everyone wanted when he took over. Progress is meant to mean that we move on to the next step. Jurgen Klopp didn't leave this team in the situation it was in for us to sit here and go, oh, well, fourth, you know, Champions League will do with us next season. That's the minimum for me. That's my opinion. That's the minimum. We shouldn't do anything less than fourth. Not that's the goal. That's the target. If that's how you feel, that's fine. But in my opinion, this team that we have available to us is more than good enough. It was 9 points last season, by the way, that we missed out on the title. It was 9 points. We can sit here now, but I don't need to. You can find 12 points from games that we absolutely should have been winning, and it was our own fault that we didn't. Not we beat teams with miracle results or this, that, and the other. 10 points, 12 points from games where it's like, how on earth have we lost this match? And that was because we weren't playing the right kind of football.
What was that stat last season? But I can't remember the exact sort of specifics of it, but we conceded first in every match that we played.
Liverpool have the record for the most games where they've won having gone behind.
That was it. Yeah, that was it.
And it was like everyone was like, "Wait, this is amazing!" And it was it's good when you win. But it's just evidence. It's just a symptom. It's just it's proof that we weren't playing well last season. It was just moments. It was brilliant. We all remember the moments.
Sooner or later, that's going to come to an end. It's going to,
of course, it did.
And it can't keep on going behind and then trying to come back and win a game. It doesn't make sense.
And it caught us, didn't it, Stu? It caught us when we played against Crystal Palace. We gave away an absolute gift. A gift to Crystal Palace, the game that we lost at Anfield. And why was that? What happened? Everyone was like, oh, right, it's okay. We'll come from behind it. And guess what? It caught us out. And that is where it derailed us. That was the situation when the momentum ran out. Put those 3 points back on the board. It's 6 points, by the way, everyone. It's not looking as bad anymore, is it? You know, it's only small changes that need to be done to put us in a situation where we can be challenging. We were challenging last season. We're playing a different style of football now, and that's clear to be seen. Slot will keep telling you, oh, well, a lot of things have stayed the same. I think a lot has changed, and I think a lot has changed very, very quickly, to be totally honest. And he said it right in his first interview. We have a lot of very good players, and we really do. And they are putting that out there on the pitch. And of course, pre-season, friendlies are friendlies. But ultimately, that was a very good performance, along with all the other very good performances, and a list of very good performances are telling you something. One dot doesn't make a line, but when we have 4 dots that all say win, 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 it's telling me we can score goals and we know how to defend our own box and penalty area. Sounds good to me so far. So we can get up and running ways against Ipswich. Very tough game. Not a game I would have fancied actually as our opening match for anyone, because any team that's been promoted first game at their ground is going to be jumping, and that's not. But at the end of the day, there's no momentum. They've not had any chance to build a momentum yet. Teams like Luton could build up a momentum. Brentford built up a momentum when they came up. Perhaps we can be the team who can make sure that we get in there before they become a team on the up. And then in the second half of the season, we can obviously do the business much more simply, going from there. This game, I was very happy with the way a number of players, and this is where Jay Muse has put in there, perfect for you, for later training only looking good. He always looking good, isn't he, Race? I know that you didn't get a chance to watch this game. He's got his first goal at the Cop End, incredibly important for a 17-year-old. I was very excited when we first signed this lad as a 16-year-old from Leicester, and he, his skinny kids just come in there. The club seems to know what it's doing when it comes to locating talent, especially at the age that it is, and he's played well. So, I mean, is he part of the first team, or do we think we might see him maybe drop back to the under-21s for a little bit? Does he just need a little bit more cooking?
I mean, you just look at, he's only 17 now, so I mean, it's tough for any player at that age to make a breakthrough. But we've done this, the last few years. Seemingly every preseason, there's a player that kind of breaks through, or in the preseason, you gets a lot of reps and kind of surprises us. I think back to like when Bajcetic, his year kind of broke out last year. Kwanzaa coming through this preseason. I mean, who's kind of making some waves here. And obviously, if you score a goal and you're 17, I mean, you're making waves already. Regardless of how it came. And it was a really nice volley he had. There was another defender going for the ball, and he got his foot on it and put it in a nice shot to the back of the net. So, for him, it's going to come, as a more of an attacking player, and it's a part of the field that, we're quite strong in. I think, it's going to be hard, I think, for a youngster to break in, especially, since we're in the Champions League this year. Maybe there's not going to be as much, minutes to come around. And so, I think maybe, the U23s might be a good spot for him to see what he can do. I don't know if like a loan move is on the cards for him. I think it's kind of early for that. I think, a player you send out on loan, I think should be, obviously you want to get him more guaranteed minutes, but, I think it's, I'm not sure about a move like that, but yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, look, injuries happen, stuff like that. And I think he came on in the League Cup final. Did he, or was he on the bench? I know he was in that squad. I don't know if he actually came on the field there.
I think he's on the bench.
Just on the bench. I don't think he came up. I think it was in the FA Cup later that week. I think he actually did come onto did make an appearance. So, he's got the backing of, he's already made an appearance for us. And yeah, I mean, for him to come in onto the side too, I think back, anytime a youngster comes in and it comes into a team, and there's, bunch of, established, first team players around him, I think that takes some of the pressure off. There's less on your plate and you can just kind of play a little more free. I think that's kind of, what allowed him to get his goal today. And just, it's much easier to come into a side like that versus, coming into like a half, coming in at halftime with a fully new side onto the pitch. And, I think it's, it's just a little bit harder to really make a true impression. But this, I think, was certainly a good, cameo for him. So, it's tough to say, if he'll have an impact or something like that. But just good to see him get a goal, and good to see that, we have some young talent. And again, Klopp wasn't afraid to play his kids. With Slot, we'll see. We'll see how he treats the youth and the younger players, and how he brings them along into our first team. So that's kind of what I'm curious to see. If he has a role, or if he can make a bench here or there, or if he'll get any minutes, if that.
Yeah, and gives us a perfect segue actually into the final part of our chat, which is Richard Hughes appears to be selling all of our kids. Something that has to happen, I'm afraid. It's not good for Player FC. It's not good for people who have their own private players and stuff like that. But unfortunately, this is what football clubs are about. And sometimes you have to sell your players who they don't believe are going to make the cut. and then keep the ones who are going to make the cut. I have an opinion on players like Ben Doak and Bobby Clark, but I'll throw it straight out there to you, Stu. Bobby Clark is up for sale. The price tag is relatively low. I believe it's around about £6 million is the asking price as reported. Ben Doak is up for loan/sale. The club has decided that is an option for themselves as well. And Fabio Carvalho, as reported earlier in this week, is already at Brentford, sold for a total package of £27.5 million when he reaches his incentives.
Seeing that he has, or he's going to sign that contract tomorrow at Brentford, so his medical is done apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a situation which has netted the club a really good profit, and I'm behind that one. But Stu, tell me your opinions on the current situation when it comes to the players we are selling, these young lads who we appear to be marketing in and around.
So to be honest, I am not surprised. It's pretty much the way I thought it would be. For one, I'm not surprised about Carvalho. I like him as a player, but I never actually saw him competing against the likes of Szoboszlai in the number 10 or Elliott in that number 10 slot. And I certainly didn't see him competing against the likes of Jota, Gakpo, and Diaz. Well, I always thought he was going to be squeezed out. And I did find it kind of a little bit weird that we signed him in the first place. That's no detriment to him. I didn't see where he was going to fit in. But at the end of the day, the club's made a really, really good profit on it. So it's a good business decision. As for the other ones, Clark, okay, 19 now, I think. So he's, again, probably looked at it and gone, okay, I've got McAllister, I've got Szoboszlai, I've got even Trent who could possibly come into midfield, and I've got Gravenberg, Endo. The list goes on through the centre of midfield. His options are going to be limited as well. So, yeah, I could see why he's moving. Then, obviously, you got Ramsey and Chambers, who both went to Wigan.
Yeah, on loan. Yeah,
both of them on loan. Perfect moves for them. They need full seasons again. Don't disagree with that. Lewis Kumas, congratulations to him. Just signed a new contract today as well, signing until 2029. So that actually is a bit of an indicator of how much the club rates him. A contract to 2029. That is a big deal for a young lad like that. And I think a year loan at Stoke in a championship team, that's will either make him or break him, because that's a tough league, tough club. It will show what he is actually about. There's a couple of other players there. I mean, I think Morton, is probably going to be one that's going to go. Even Vandenberg, again, has been. I think looking at Slot's comments about him not playing,
Vandenberg wanted to go.
Yeah,
he wanted to.
That is going to happen. So I think all the ones that are being sold or being put up for loan, I think all the decisions at the moment stand correct. The only one that did surprise me a little bit was about the selling side of things was Doak. I thought maybe he was a little bit more highly rated, but if they're open to selling him, then so be it. At the end of the day, we have to trust the club's decision. And because it's a whole new coaching staff team, whole new scouting setup again, data analysts and all that sort of stuff, they've all looked at it and obviously looked at the youngsters and looked at the numbers. And yeah, we may have looked at them with some rose-tinted glasses last season because Klopp brought them through. We needed them in the team. He gave the youngsters chances and minutes. But maybe we looked at these youngsters and thought, yeah, these ones are going to be the next big thing. Slot has come in with a different perspective with his analysis teams and looked at it and gone, actually, I don't think all these kids are going to make it. Perhaps it's time to cash in on some of these now. I think that's probably the most logical way. I think things have been looked at over the last couple of months since Slot has arrived. And I'd say he always wanted that chance to have a look at the entire squad before the start of the season. He's done that. Decisions have been made now, and I think the correct ones have been made so far.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's hard because there's a number of people who obviously you have your vested interest. I really like Fabio Carvalho. I thought he was a real talent. I think he is a real talent. But then you also have to be looking objectively and take off, as you say, the rose-tinted glasses and sit there and go, He came to us, didn't work out. Went out on loan to RB Leipzig, didn't work out. Went to Hull, it worked out. He worked out at Fulham while he was at the Championship. He went back to Hull, did well for half a season. He's come back to us, done well in pre-season. But the truth of the matter is, where is he going to play? Is he going to get in our team with the players that we have right now? Probably not. And if a club is willing to offer you £27.5 million as a whole package deal with easily achievable incentives, which is apparently what's been reported, you can't say no to that to a player you bought for what, a couple of £1 million, was it? It wasn't very much. It was like five.
I think it's £5 million in total.
Yeah, 5 million in total. It's a massive deal financially for the club, and it's a situation that sometimes you just have to go, do you know what? We don't feel that you're going to get to the point where we want you to be as a Liverpool player, and that's unfortunate, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Ben Doak, I've less of an opinion. I think he is a good player. I do. I think he's obviously got high potential, but from what I've seen so far, I just feel like he's too erratic. He's not anywhere close to being ready to be a first-team player for Liverpool or a substitute for Liverpool, to be totally honest with you, because he's not scoring goals, he's not creating assists, he's just doing a lot of running, and that's great and that's brilliant, but it's not enough for me right now. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in the future he comes back and he becomes a world beater and we all look with egg on our face. But the truth of the matter is for every time you maybe get one wrong, the club should be getting 11 or 12 players right who they've sold, who don't ever make it to a point where Liverpool want to be. They go and have good careers, but they would never be where we want them to be. Within our first team. And that's something which Liverpool hasn't been able to do for a long time, is let go of people. We seem to be so much wanting to have a little bit of a kumbaya, sit round the fire, and everyone stays and nobody ever leaves. But do we remember Naby Keita? Do you remember Jordan Henderson's situation? Do you remember, a number of players who stuck around a little bit longer than they should? And that's, something the club needs to do better, and they need to move people on. I'm not sitting here and saying, let's abdicate, let's sell him. If a loan comes in, yes, take it. Why not? Why not? He goes on a loan, does incredibly at Blackburn, say, for example, and then comes back to us and he's a world beater. Well, guess what? Everyone wins. Blackburn have a good player for a season. We have a player who has either gone up in value or becomes a first-team substitute.
With Doak, I think that is the best option for this season, at least. I think is send him out on loan and get him a full first-team game season, and then assess it again at the end of the season. I think he's not even 18 yet.
No, and that's fair. I mean, I said he'd had quite a serious injury last season. Yeah. I said in an earlier chat when we talked about the young boys, I actually said, get him on a loan. I've got the same opinion for Stefan Bajcetic. Stefan Bajcetic needs a loan. Why does he need a loan? Because he needs minutes. He needs to play. He's got to be in a team. He's got to go and play. And he's probably not going to get it at Liverpool unless we start getting injuries. And no one's going to sit here and say, well, let's start advocating for injuries, because that's not what anyone wants. Sometimes it becomes a lucky situation for the club. They end up discovering Jarell Kwanzaa because Joel Matip did his ACL. They were all shocked. They didn't realise that this player was there and he got his opportunity. He grabbed it with both hands. Trent Alexander-Arnold was the best player in the league up to his knee injury. And then Conor Bradley came out there and was clearly a player who's now become part of the first team setup. But that's not always the case. Ben Doak is not going to get in front of Mo Salah. And just to answer some of the chat which people have put in there about Mo Salah, I've tried to keep it on point. But we can't bring anyone in on the right wing because it'd be really difficult to convince them, because Mo Salah is going to play every game because that's what he does. That's what he's always done. So it's difficult for us to sit here. I think we replace Mo Salah when Mo Salah is not here. I think it's much easier to sit there and sell a project to a player and say, you are first choice, not as it stands now, which is you will be first choice next season, but not today, because your job is to basically come on and do the games that Mo Salah doesn't want to do and then come on and replace Mo Salah. And that's a tough sell. And right now, that's probably not the best sell to go out there and do. Liverpool free up £350,000 a week next season. That's a lot of money. That's an awful lot of cash that comes available next season for a player. Not what we want to hear, but that's the way we run. We're not owned by an oil state. And then finally, when it comes to certain players, like, for example, Lewis Kumas, made up. I couldn't be happy with him. And as you said, it's a statement of intent that we're not just selling all these lads off and getting rid of them. Here you go. Here's a new contract. You go to Stoke. Go and learn your trade under Schumacher. who I think is going to give them a really good standing. He's going to get plenty of minutes. He's going to have this opportunity to go and shine. We've seen Harvey Elliott go and do it. And, I think Jayden Danns may well go on loan in January. I'm not sure whether he can go on a loan mid-season. But because of this back injury, I think he would have already been on a loan somewhere.
No, it would have to wait until January.
I thought it might, Stu. Yeah, I didn't know whether there was like a Passover where as long as they weren't registered with your first team, you could send them on a loan somewhere or whatever. But yeah, January, it wouldn't surprise me. He comes around in January. He goes out on a loan. We might see some cameos when he's back and fit. That's potentially what could happen. But between now and then, unfortunately for people, we're just going to have to accept that Edwards and co are here now. And nobody sat there and said, oh, why are we selling Rhian Brewster for 25 million quid? Why are we selling Jordan Hyde for 15 million pounds? You've got to do this. And unfortunately, he's probably a little bit better placed because of the data and because of all the information he has available to him to sit there and make those judgments. They see what they're like every single day. They have all this algorithm and all this information rather than our own opinion. And ultimately, he's been proven correct on a number of occasions. There hasn't been many players who've gone on to do better having left Liverpool than those who have done well. Takumi Minamino potentially is a player, but to be honest with you, Takumi Minamino was a goal scorer, a little bit like Fabio Carvalho. He wasn't very good at being able to influence matches when we weren't sort of on the ball, if that makes sense. He was just sort of a player who could be in the right places at the right times. And they're great to have, but when you're playing a team sport and you're playing the way that we're playing, we need players who can influence football matches, and I never felt that he did. He's done really well at Monaco, and I'm really pleased for him because I thought he was a great lad, but he just wasn't, up to the standard where we are. But yeah, well, one last little review through the comments before we wrap it up there. Dante Diaz did well on the right when he has to play there. It's an option. I think you're absolutely right. I think sticking him on the right might help. Not having to put on to his left all the time, which he doesn't like to use, perhaps just allowing him to take one touch and then shoot across the goal might well benefit him. And I think playing Diaz on the right wing because it is a real option. Buying a loan back down, 100%. There's plenty of situations that can be done for a number of players. I mean, why wouldn't we? Why couldn't we just kind of loan these certain players back there and have a buyback in the situation? There's loads of things that can be done, but it is what it is. The opinion has to be made about certain players, and ultimately, Arne Slot and his team only have so many hours in the day to manage projects. We have a lot of projects in this team. Trey Neone is a project. Stefan Bajcetic is a project. Jayden Danns is a project. The list goes on. Connor Bradley and Jarell Kwanzaa, by the way, they're still a project. They're only 20 and 21. They're not there yet. They've done really well, but there's a lot to teach them. There's a lot for them to still learn. And ultimately, sometimes the best thing to do is to say, it's see you for now, but it might not be goodbye forever. But talking of goodbyes and see yous later, guys, thank you very much, Race. Thank you very much, Stu. Really appreciate you coming on there. Everyone who's been involved in the chat, really appreciate you getting involved. A lot to talk about, a lot to discuss, a lot going on. However, not a lot has happened. But I hope you join me next Sunday, where I'll still be talking about Zubimendi and the players that we might have sold. So until then, thanks very much. See you later. Have a great week.